So welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brandy. I am the host of the Be Real Babe show, a spinoff of the Be Real Babe podcast. And as you're watching this, it is Monday, so that means it is time to talk about Canada. We are keeping up with Canada in this segment today, and we're going to be talking about the recent federal election and just going over some key points about it, and just a little bit of my feels. I'm going to be a little bit more on my feels in this one than most, and then it's going to be back to scrutinizing everything because, you know, that's what I like to do in my spare time, is criticize the Liberal government. So we're going to be there for another 4 years. Hey, but you know what? I have a show. I have things to do. I need to report. So I guess this is great because I'll have nonstop content. And now that I've taken my emotions out of it after the couple of days, I'm ready to chat about it. So if you guys are interested in going over what happened in the Canadian federal election this last week, stick around and we'll jump right in. Okay, babes, so as most of you probably know, whether you're in Canada or outside of Canada, the Liberals have won for the election, this election season in 2025. A lot of division is coming out of this election, which I kind of figured would happen. So congratulations to the Liberals. I'm not going to be a sore loser because I just don't believe in that. I don't believe that's how we're going to bring us back together. At the same time, y'all, I've been a conservative for 10 years. So if you think that I'm going to get emotionally brought into this election result, I'm just not. I know a lot of people are going through it for their first time, really being hopeful for change and then being slammed back. I think most of us felt the same way when we had an election 4 years ago, and it was a kind of quick trigger there, and we had to watch the person that we disliked the most get in again. So I know for OG conservatives, we're quite used to it, but as you can tell, a lot of them are getting fed up, and that's why you're hearing a lot of conversations about the West separating and all of that. And I mean, I'm not gonna sit there and say that I'm not angry or frustrated or that I'm not having emotions. That's not what I'm saying. For me personally, though, I'm just regulating it and just trying to immediately go to, okay, well, what do I need to do in my life to make myself feel better, to feel supported, to help everyone around me. I know for some people, they're going through this the first time where they've really gotten into politics and really were hoping for a change. I mean, again, it's really built on your algorithm, right? So for me personally, and I'm seeing a lot of other conservatives where we just see nothing but support. We see nothing but blue. We've very rarely seen support for the Liberals outside of mainstream media, where the Liberals were having a completely different algorithm where they're just seeing continual mainstream media validate their feelings, and then they're seeing comments in the comment section about how they in fact preferred Mark Carney over Justin Trudeau. So when originally at the beginning of the year, when everyone was pushing for an election, and yes, Americans, I understand the irony of us calling for an emergency election, wanting an election, and voting the same people in. However, I just want to remind everyone that just because they won the same amount of seats, it doesn't mean that that's what majority of Canadians want. Now, that maybe by like a small percentage, but I also think if you look at the numbers, it does look like conservatives really showed up hot and heavy this year. And I think it's really easy to say that at least the country is split 50-50. I think those last couple of numbers can be argued very much. And I just think that's a waste of time. But I think we can all say that the country is completely divided in half right now. And the craziest thing is if you actually dial out and look at all the problems and all the fears that people have, they somewhat align to being the same. The only difference I find for the most part between liberals and conservatives is that conservatives have for the most part been either liberal their whole life or have dealt with liberal policies and are just fed up and tired of the lies and the continual, we'll fix this, but we've never seen it being fixed on a grand scale. At the same time, liberals look at like, oh, look at all the wonderful things that we have done. There's no way that conservatives could do that. So it's like, it gets frustrating as, like I said, as a conservative, because we've been trying to have stuff changed and have our voices heard. And it really feels like the west side of the country has a lot of different needs compared to the east side. But unfortunately, again, as mentioned, the way that these things are set up, the way that it is set up and where people are funneling in, it's kind of like city versus rural. And it feels like because there's more people in the city centers that they're getting their voices heard far more than anybody in rural area, farmland, anything like that. Because if you dial out and you look at where still that the Liberals or NDP had a hold on individuals, it was more to the city centers. And also, and I'm not going to say that this was done in maliciousness or nefariously, but we do have to have the conversation of changing the ridings and where things move. When, for example, here in Kelowna, there was some riding changes where predominantly we've always been conservative through and through. Now somehow we moved a bunch of the rural ridings out to a different riding and individuals out to a different riding. And now Kelowna has been focused within on the city with, you know, a little bit of a different priorities that those are in the farmlands and the rural lands and all those kind of things. And I think really at the end of the day, that's where all the separatist talk is coming from. And I understand everybody in the comment section, you know, they have their concerns, and I understand all of that. But I think what it concerns me the most is instead of addressing the many reasons people want to separate from Canada and form this Western coalition over here versus working with the East, like, why aren't we having conversations as to why? A lot of the comments in the comment section are going off about how you guys, Albertans are so fucking selfish and they don't funnel the whole entire country. We don't care, da 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 da. Okay, then why don't you care if we just separate and do something different then? If we're not funneling you and you guys can stand on your own and it's amazing, then why don't you? Why is that happening? Why is Quebec? I heard specifically people were saying Quebec, that, you know, they get mad at them for separating. Well, that never actually went through, but we just pay them all this money all the time. Right? So I just, you know, and two, if you were in the eastern side and it was attacking the way you make resources, the way that you feed your family, I think you would be pissed too. But anyways, I'm going to try and go forward in this next year on YouTube, trying to be as middle ground as I possibly can be. Of course, that's going to be hard because I have grown up as a Liberal and NDP and then flipped drastically when I moved to Alberta and understood the hard work that those individuals do to literally, again, maybe you don't even think about the money, but you hate the oil and gas, then get the fuck out of your car, your house, your everything that oil and gas funnels. It's super interesting to me when people have shit to say about the oil field and how much they fucking hate it, when literally majority of what they have is because of the oil field. And I'm not talking about the money that it puts into the country. All the shit that you're using is made out of. So you hate that, but you don't give up anything that provides that to you. But meanwhile, you're sitting here running your mouth to the men that have to go leave their families for weeks on end in shitty conditions, -40 working, when some of you don't even have a fucking job and just sit at home and comment about how it should be ran. Does that make sense? Does it make sense that people that don't live in that industry or understand where it literally makes the world go round, whether you hate it or not? That's what the problem is. That's why so many people are frustrated. Our men sacrifice their family and their home time to go and do that. Yes, of course, everyone sacrifices to leave their home and not being able to work full time. But unless you leave like truckers or oil field men or traveling salespeople, you don't truly understand how hard it is. Right? But then you have to sit here and run your mouth. The Liberals had nothing to help those people. The Liberals ran nothing about how they were going to help the drug crisis in this country. They did nothing. All they talked about were the war on tariffs with Trump and how they were going to elbows up to Donald Trump as if he's scared of Canadian elbows. Like, I'm sorry. It's very embarrassing. It feels very embarrassing for that. You know what would have been so much cooler, and I would have had so much more respect, but I get it because that one maybe have gotten popular votes, is the conversation on both ends, and this is where I think Pierre fucked up, is talking about working together to build a beneficial relationship that everyone can flourish. And I think that would have been the cool way on the world stage to show that, instead of this elbows up, blah, 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 which was the same messaging, I remind you, from Trudeau. That was the same messaging that he had. That started with him. It carried on to Carney, and you guys just think because he has a different title and he hasn't been living here that all of a sudden and maybe he is. I am fully prepared to eat crow if this man does an amazing job. I, honest to God, for my mental health, hope that I'm fucking wrong, and that all of us conservatives that were scared that we're wrong for the right reasons, truly. But hey, I felt that way during COVID, and well, here we are. So I'm not really feeling like I'm gonna have to eat crow, you know what I'm saying? But I will. The thing is I didn't see any policies or anything reflected in what I and a lot of the Western people and conservatives viewed as important, and that's where the frustration lies. Okay? So please, Americans, when you say, oh, Canadians, you voted for this, half of us didn't, though. Half of us didn't. And so many people can love this system and hate the Americans and blah, blah, blah. Either way, half of Canada was not happy with this. And that's why I personally think there needs to be a reform. It needs to change because it doesn't feel like Ottawa is speaking for the constituents in the West anymore. It just doesn't. And the fact that so many different ridings turned blue and that the Conservatives gained 21 or 23 seats in the House, that means something. So I personally don't think Pierre flopped whatsoever. And I think everybody can say and have their opinions. That's not my personal opinion. And I'm still going to back him. But before I continue ranting, let's get on to some of these articles, just kind of sharing how exactly this is going for us Canadians here. Promise you, not great. Okay, so how Canada voted in the charts. So this was from April 29th. I know it's a couple days late, but regardless, the results are still the results. Mark Carney's Liberal Party has won enough seats in the House of Commons to form a government in Canada. However, CBC News projects that they will fall short of the majority they wanted. Carney is set to remain Prime Minister, having assumed their role in early March following Justin Trudeau's resignation, which has never happened in Canadian history, is what I heard. His main rival, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, has lost his own seat, as well as Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP. Carney's Liberals have 168 seats, but would need 172 for a majority. The Conservatives are set to remain in opposition as the second largest party and are at 144 seats, with over 99% of the polls having reported results. The Bloc Québécois is only 23 seats and only runs candidates in the province of Quebec. Why? The NDP has been reduced to 7 seats and the Green Party to 1. Go Elizabeth May! You're an inspiration. Both the Liberals and Conservatives have seen significant rise in their share of the national vote compared with 4 years ago, so we're now turning into two-party state here. Increased support for Canada's two largest parties has come at the expense of smaller parties, particularly the NDP, whose share of the popular vote is down by almost 12%. So again, Pierre lost his seat, and I'm going to say, I get it. In a sense where maybe people locally were tired of the same one for 20 years. I think it's a weird time to do it. Can you just let him get to be Prime Minister? And again, I'm not going to say this was in malice, but worked out really nicely for them that they changed the lines of his writing. So again, moving things, and all of a sudden people are like, why did this change after 20 years? Well, something changed again. Whatever. We want to say we're in a democracy, fine. But these things are weird to me. But we don't pay attention. We just see, well, he won his writing. Right? We're not seeing some of the seats being switched currently. But anyways, I digress. The rise in support for the Conservatives was not enough to save Poilievre, who lost his own seat in Carleton, Ontario, but he flipped a lot of other seats. Let's please remember that. The 45-year-old promised a return to common sense politics, which we were all hoping for. Opinion polls at the start of the year had the Conservatives over 20% points ahead of the Liberals, but after the resignation of former Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the arrival of new PM Mark Carney, the tariffs announced by President Trump, the lead evaporated. In his own seat, Poilievre had 90 opponents, mostly independent candidates linked to a group calling for electoral reform. Isn't that interesting? But you'll bitch at everybody else for how they want to do things. But anyways, sorry. NDP leader also lost his own seat in the House of Commons, thank God, coming in third behind the Liberals and the Conservatives. Okay, let's look at, here's by province. So as you can see, when we look at seats, 200 out of the 343 in this area are in these areas right here. Okay? We live drastically different on this side of the playing field than this side of the playing field, and that is what is upsetting. That is what most people are upset with. Also, where's Newfoundland? Why aren't they being... Oh, right there. I was like, hey, did they forget about them? Everyone always forgets. This is where people are upset, right? Because, and honestly, I'm kind of shocked. I feel like there should have been more, and that BC looked a lot more blue. I think they're just showing these seats, but if you actually look at the numbers, it is quite interesting when you look at seats versus numbers. But target turnout for federal elections in 2025, this is the most we have ever seen. Back in 2015, we've seen a bunch as well. It kind of dropped in 2021, but it's really good to see that we're continually, hopefully, going to keep getting people voting, because, you know, people say that their votes don't matter, and I just want to say that's not true, because in some ridings, it was only a couple hundred votes. Here in Kelowna, I think the difference in the riding was like anywhere between 150 and 200 votes. So, you know, don't think that your vote doesn't count, because it absolutely does. And again, like, if you're not happy with the results, then I highly suggest getting involved and learning more and opening up conversation. I would also say, if you're in it and you're really deep in it and your political identity is having you spiral either way, and you just feel like you're constantly arguing people online and in the comment sections, I would really encourage you to detach yourself from your political identity. And I think that's what a lot of us need to learn, is that remember when we didn't know about people's politics and we got along with them more? And I guess because it's affecting people more and more these days, that's why they're upset. But I think that's why you're going to see conservatives a little bit more upset with the liberals, because I don't think you guys have fully understood what it's like to feel landlocked and not listened to for over 10 years. It's also frustrating when you say that our country's not doing great, but then you vote in the same people. There's not much difference. And I hope that some of the policies that Carney adopted that were very clearly how the conservatives wanted to move ahead, I hope he does adopt them. And we have Pierre to thank for that, because that was not the Liberal government. But we'll sit back and see. I would like to go over and see over the next couple of weeks who he's going to put in, what's going to happen. Are they going to hire people, some NDPs, to form a majority government? Is the Bloc going to do a coalition? What is going to happen? We do know that I'll talk about this quickly before I jump off here, because I kind of wanted to leave this one a little short, because your girl's just a little bum hurt, and I feel like I'm being a little bit more meaner than I want to come at this. So I need some time to cool down, because it's pissing me off. You're pissing me off. Love y'all, but you fucking suck right now in the comment sections too. Both sides. Like I'm want to go back to just getting mad at the government and not the politics of it, because there just seems to be so much right now. But there's hope for us conservatives yet. And the irony right now of liberals getting upset because of how this is happening when it's actually happening in a legit way versus it being stolen is hilarious to me. Conservative MP gives up seat for Pierre Poilievre to run in the by-election. A Conservative MP is giving up his seat to allow Pierre Poilievre to run a by-election after Prime Minister Mark Carney said he'd be ready to call one as soon as possible. On Friday, the Conservative Party announced Conservative MP-elect Damien Carrick will resign to allow Poilievre to run in an upcoming by-election. Carrick was first elected in Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot in 2019. The Conservatives handedly won that riding on Monday with nearly 82% of the vote. In a post to X on Friday, Poilievre said, "It is with humility and appreciation that I have accepted Damien Carrick's offer to resign his seat." He also wrote that he will work to earn the trust of the good people of Battleford River Crowfoot and will continue to hold the Liberal minority government to account until the next federal election, when we will bring a real change to all Canadians. According to statements from both Poilievre and Carrick is only temporarily stepping aside. Although it would be hard to temporarily step away from this role in this region I love and have always called home, the mandate given to me is one that clearly states that change is needed. Offering this seat to our party leader is an important step in that process. In a significant upset, Poilievre lost his Ottawa riding seating in Carleton, a seat he's held for over 20 years, by more than 43,000 votes to Liberal candidate Bruce Fanjoy. But despite losing his seat and leading the party to its fourth failed attempt to defeat the Liberals, Poilievre appears to have support from the party for now. Poilievre is absolutely staying on, a former leader and re-elected Conservative MP in the riding of Regina Coapel, Andrew Scheer told CTV Power Play on Wednesday. While Poilievre remains the leader of the Conservative Party, he is no longer the leader of the official opposition after losing his riding. The party will now look to an interim leader, which I really fucking hope is Melissa Lawrenceman. The party will now look to find an interim leader to the party in the House of Commons until Poilievre finds a new seat. I wish it was Michelle, but she didn't get voted in either. The Conservative Party caucus is set to meet for the first time since losing the federal election on Tuesday, according to internal memo. The meeting is being called to exercise provisions set out in the Reform Act contained in Section 49 of the Parliament of Canada Act. Through the Reform Act initiative from the Ontario Conservative MP Michael Chong that came into elect in 2015, the caucus can vote on giving themselves 4 key internal powers for the upcoming session, including the ability to review and remove their party leader and elect an interim replacement. If the Conservatives want to forge ahead with a leadership review, 20% of the caucus would need to sign a formal agreement to trigger the process, and then it would require a majority of caucus members to vote to remove the leader through a secret ballot process. In 2022, the party used the powers to oust former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole following months of turmoil in the wake of 2021 federal election. Carney will call by-election ASAP, and he's not seeking to form a formal pact with the NDP. But guys, this was also written on the 29th. There is some rumblings that might actually happen. And I think a lot of us are just please let it be minority. However, a minority government historically doesn't last long in Canada, and that's why they bolster this. But we'll find out. Carney is expected to swear in the cabinet of the week of May 12th and recall Parliament on May 26th. King Charles III, the lizard, will also deliver his speech to the throne on May 27th. So there you fucking have it. So I will give credit where credit is due. Thank you, Prime Minister Carney, and again, I'm not going to fucking play these games, guys, because I would want people to be respectful to Pierre if he got in. So I am going to call things by their proper names, and I personally want to look into how we change things and be a part of the change, not just sit here and bitch online, which is great too. It's a real good relief, but I also do really want to work to see change, and I will give props where props due. Again, I will eat crow. If Carney does things I agree with, I will 100% admit that. I will also criticize things I don't agree with. I also do that for Poilievre and the Conservatives, and I really hated how some of the stance against Trump, I was not for that. There were some things, and I did criticize them. However, again, Conservatives have done nothing to hurt me in my real life, where Liberals have, in the ways of how they've treated millennials, just on how they're treating things and how my generation feels like we're never going to get fucking ahead. And all we were told is if we worked hard, we could get out of it. And we did. And we dealt with the dump of your guys' shit for fucking years. And we've had to deal with this. And now we don't even get to enjoy the rest of our lives. We're going to have to work till we're 90, and then we're going to be offered a assisted suicide. Let's call it for a fucking is. I'm so tired of calling it MAIDS. MAIDS is for people that are end of care. Anything else is an assisted suicide. I'm not monetized on YouTube. But thank you, Prime Minister Carney, I keep saying President, Prime Minister Carney, for allowing that. I think that shows integrity. It shows that you're not afraid to debate, because I think what everyone forgets is where Pierre Poilievre shines, and that is in the House of Commons with debating. And he's very good and not afraid of saying anything, and he hasn't signed anything that gags him. So also want to clear up that Mark Carney's wife did not say that she was going to leave Canada strong and poor. She said Canada fort. And fort, this is someone that doesn't speak French well. Fort in French is strong. So again, Conservatives, I'm going to also hold us to be accountable and not being spreading bullshit like this. I know at first I thought that too. And then, I'm just saying, when you find opposing information and it is correct, you need to correct yourselves. And I'm going to work really hard to do that this year so that Canadians can come to me and we can talk about things. I'm obviously always going to have my certain bias, you guys, but I think it's important to know what you stand for, know what you believe in, and be able to admit, like, yeah, I don't love this about my side, but I'm still standing there because we can work to change that, right? And I think that's all Conservatives wanted this year, was just a chance at change. But instead, we have to be told that we're all these names and we're awful people and we're wrong. And most of Canada didn't want Pierre Poilievre, which was not correct. And maybe they didn't, but they definitely didn't want Liberals and Mark Carney either, right? But unfortunately, going against CBC, we see what happened during the pandemic. It's a very big machine. So I'm interested in what's to come. And again, guys, endless content for me. I guess I'm not going anywhere. But I do want to try to work my hardest to come to this in the middle ground, come at it with not as much of a bias, but I'm going to slip up along the way. But I hope you guys stick around for this journey, because who the fuck knows what's going to happen in the next 4 years. But you bet your ass this babe will be in this chair with this mic talking about it every fucking week for the most of the year. Thank you guys again for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Conservatives, stay strong. Liberals, stay humble. Honestly, again, we're not going to come together and we're not going to fix this divide if we just hate each other. So let's find some fucking common ground and let's work together and stop hating each other in the comment sections. The irony of me posting this is probably what I'm going to clip for the TikTok. And I'm sure there's going to be some liberals in my comment section telling me how stupid I am and all these kind of things. But you know what? Until the next episode.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, bye.